first ever X3 Mastermind. And my purpose of this call today, guys, and hopefully on a regular basis, is to bring us all together. So I appreciate you right now. Even the how many of us are there right now? 35 of us that made it. It's amazing. You're here. You took time out of your day to come here because you want to better yourself. And so my vision, my purpose for this mastermind is for us on a regular occurrence, hopefully, to get together and just to share on how do we become the best versions of ourselves. Obviously, we all know the X3 and the ability to transform our bodies with that, but there's a lot more than just the X3 itself that I want to discuss today. And a little bit of what I was hoping for, and we're going to lead this as a community. This is going to be a community driven, guys. So what with your guys' input over time, we can make this the mastermind exactly that you want to see on an everyday basis. But my purpose, my vision is I want to create a community that sharpens one another, that allows us to talk freely. And I know a little bit is happening in the group already, but where we can get the support, the coaching, the motivation, the inspiration, and dial in things that are going to absolutely help us mentally, physically, emotionally as we're going through this transformation together. So I'd like to start off by anyone who's out there who has a camera on, hopefully, who likes to share a little bit of their story, their testimony, a little bit about how the X3 itself came into their life and what life has been with the X3 in their life. So if any of you wants to start here, go ahead and unmute yourself, or obviously I can share my own story. Yeah, you want me to start? So I had a background in collegiate football and semi-pro football. I originally got into weight training way back in the day in high school because I wanted to be the best athlete possible. And so Olympic lifting, powerlifting was kind of a natural byproduct of my teenage years. And for me, I was always curious on how we can optimize performance. And the same as it goes with fuel. I've always been super intrigued by fitness in conjunction with nutrition. Like, what's the optimal fuel for our body? Nutrition wise, I've tried paleo, I went primal, I did the zone. Remember back in the day, the zone diet with Barry Sears and All About Blocks, if you guys ever remember that. And then over time, the low carb community became super popular. The books like Protein Power. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago where I was introduced to the carnivore diet. And now I know there's some of you here. I've gotten many of the comments saying, "Hey, I don't want to do carnivore," and we're going to discuss that today. Don't worry, I'm not going to push carnivore on you guys. I'll just tell you, it's been life changing for me. I'm 42. I'm in the best shape of my life. I was a CrossFit athlete. I actually competed in 2009 at the Western Canada Regionals. If you know anything about CrossFit, you know what that entails. It's a pretty insane sport, and I've never had any injuries. So I've trained with the Olympic bar. I've trained with barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells, gymnastics, all of it. And when the X3 came into my life, I was like, bands, like bands at a plate, like this is lame. There's no way this could be anything compared to what I've learned training. But sure enough, I mean, anything, I've never seen anything like it, in terms of the most amount of transformation for the littlest amount of time. And what I love most about it is that for me, I can keep the intensity super high. I can get it out. I'm a dad of four. I have four kids under the age of 10. I can get in a workout in less than 20 minutes. In some cases, I do like to add a few things in just because it's hard to, I've done a lot of stuff over my life, so there's some things I still enjoy doing outside of just the X3 bar. But I think it's really a minimalistic approach to getting the maximum amount of input or output and transformation in your life. And especially if you're a person that's on the go, if you don't have much time, you can travel with it, and it's been freeing. I mean, in the sense of the combination of doing the X3 bar for me, as well as the carnivore diet, has been like the easiest way to transform my body. I mean, I'm the same weight at 42 that I was in high school playing football. So that's kind of my story, how I came to it. And I love that it naturally warms you up. There's not a lot of wear and tear or even risk of injury because of the band training, the resistance training. So that's my story. And I've tried all the programming. I know there's some, we're going to be talking about that today, guys. I know you guys are like, is it the OG? Is it the hypertrophy? What about all the coaches in the community that are doing certain trainings? I personally use Coach Johan. If you're here, brother, I'd love to see you. Um, and I know if Dr. John is here and he's going to be coming here shortly, I know he's coming off a podcast, so we're going to see him coming in soon. Ooh, there's people in the waiting room. Let me all here. That's probably that. As we're seeing, I need to get a co-host to get everybody in here. So Dr. John will be coming in if he has not already just joined the meeting. And what I'll tell you is that they all work. They all work. They work if you work it, right? So it kind of comes down to your lifestyle. And it kind of comes down to what works best for you. Because I tell everybody, and I do videos on this all the time, you are your own experiment. Now, you're going to find there's different programs that probably complement you a little bit more based on your lifestyle and what your goals are. That's the key. There's not one size fits all. Just like, I may a little bit be biased and say you should all be carnivores, but let's be honest, that's not going to happen for everybody. So the purpose of this call today, guys, is I want to open the floor if anyone wants to share it, but I want to spend time focusing on Dr. John talking about the OG versus the hypertrophy versus some new exciting programming news he has for you. I want to focus on a little bit about our diets, carnivore versus all the other, animal based and just whatever, however you eat out there. But performance versus fat loss could be a topic of discussion. I want to focus on supplementation, like who's supplementing with what, and hormone optimization. Some of you are going to want to know a little bit more about the hormone side. I want to focus also on a little bit about the product itself. The X3, the band durability. If you have questions about that, I've seen the accessories that are out there, the GH accelerator vibe plate, and then a little bit about mindset, motivation, and coaching and support. Does that sound good?
Hey, Marcus, I'm here, just so you know.
There you are. Okay, so I need to get these co-hosts, John, because there was 10 people in the waiting room. I'm like, oh, so
I
here's
was
what you
one of
missed.
them. Yeah.
Here's what you missed. You missed in the beginning we had Rocky going on, the theme song, "I Have the Tiger." So you just pretend you listened to that before you got into this meeting.
Sweet.
And I shared a little bit about my testimony and story behind the X3. So not much. And then I kind of just set the agenda. Did you hear the agenda?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll let you have the floor. And John, tell us a little bit about anything. Share anything you'd like. But obviously, there's some questions going on with the programming right now. The OG programming versus the hypertrophy programming versus something you have just spent the last week going through. So I'll let you open the floor here in the discussion.
If I ever need to keep a secret, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah. So there are some significant differences between the hypertrophy program and the standard program. A lot of it just depends on how much time you have, how you want to arrange your workout, but it also the biggest change with X3 really has to do with the strategy of the business. And I would say that in the beginning, there was a lot of huge questions of like, does it work? Like, will I gain muscle at the same rate I will with regular weights? I love that question because it's like, are you really gaining anything with regular weights? Because most people, it's like, no, you're not, or you're lying to yourself. Like, you look back 10 years of their photographs and all they look is older, not more muscular. But I generally feel like you need to make it work. Like the best workout is the workout you're going to stick to, right? If you're going to if it's too much time or too much commitment, or you gotta like you can't get to work on time if you're going to work out for 90 minutes doing your hypertrophy program, maybe that's not exactly what fits. The reason I was such a pain in the ass about sticking to the standard program in the beginning was because people didn't know if X3 worked. And I wanted them to get to a point where, okay, it obviously works. So like you'll notice on the forum, in the beginning, people would be like, there's no way you can gain any muscle with this. And then there'd be a big discussion. I'd post a bunch of science. Somebody would be an asshole to me, whatever. Like that was the way that worked. But now that we have 500,000 X3 users, it's pretty obvious that it works. And it's pretty obvious that it works better than anything else out there. Therefore, now I have the flexibility to be able to say, here are some different ways you can use it. So in the beginning, I want everybody using it the most optimized way and the most time constrained, I shouldn't say constrained, time optimized way, so that that first 500,000 users would all have a great experience. Because also, like, if I put it out there and I'd be like, hey, there's like 50 or 60 different exercise variations you can do with this thing, figure out what you want. People would not have figured it out, or they would have come up with some exercise variation that does nothing or maybe hurts them. And then they would be like, yeah, X3 doesn't work. So in the beginning, you sort of have to be a dick because you want everybody to get enough of the same experience where the consensus is, wow, this is better. Now that we have that, we can add some more flexibility. So if you want to do, let's say, you want to do the standard program because of time, but you want some of the hypertrophy benefits also, pick a muscle group that you think is lagging. Like if you think your neck's skinny and you think your trapezius muscles too small, focus on like a volume approach to the deadlift, but then do the standard programming for the rest of the movements. So you're saving time, and then you're putting a lot of resources into where you want to make some changes, either from a strength standpoint or an aesthetics standpoint, how you look. So it's not necessarily do one or the other. You can kind of mix and match. Now, there was a curveball sort of thrown my way a few months ago when I was just finishing up the hypertrophy program. And I was very happy with the hypertrophy program. Um, Matt Wenning was an amazing asset in helping develop that. And world record squat guy, West Side Barbell guy. I was kind of blown away because one of my really good friends, Craig Bongelli, who you probably haven't seen much of, but he's just a good friend. He's one of the top strength coaches in the world. He became head of strength conditioning for West Side Barbell. And he had previously trained at Westside Barbell under Louis Simmons. For those of you that don't know what's so important about this place, it's a gym in Columbus, Ohio, that has one single gym, one location, has more world records than any country on earth, including the United States. So they clearly know what they're doing. And what made them so successful was variable resistance. They are pretty much variable resistance all the time, everything. Don't ask any questions. So Craig was asked to be head of strength conditioning. He introduced me to the CEO of Westside Barbell. And apparently now I know how all those NFL players were getting X3. It was because Westside Barbell was telling them to get it. And so I was like, hey, let's all work together. So what we're doing now is we're developing a program that has things in it that I would have never thought of that are absolutely awesome. So the Westside Barbell program is coming out. It will be a subscription-based program, and there will be a library of different movements that can be done with X3. The whole program is based on X3. Um, but this will be the absolute deep dive, answer all the questions, and this way you'll be able to really kind of mix and match. Like if you want a certain thing, want to train your calves a certain way that you got from the standard program, you want to do the overhead press like the standard program, you want to grab something from the hypertrophy program, and then the rest of it you want to do some of the programming from Westside Barbell. That will be a very easy thing to do, because there's going to be so much information in there. We're building a library of different exercises that will blow your mind. Like I said, things I never would have thought. I would say 75% of the things they showed me that they were doing with X3, I was like, wow. Like, now they train the best athletes in the world. Uh, I would say I meet with some of the best athletes in the world and then tell their strength coaches about the principles of X3, and then suggest that they look at the videos of the standard program and stick to that as much as they can. But you never want to offend a strength coach and sort of get in the way of their job. Their job is very complicated. It's on a case by case basis because every athlete needs something a little different. So I always present it in a way where I wouldn't get in the way of their job. I'm just trying to add to their job, or make their job easier by giving them a really effective tool. But this Westside Barbell thing changes everything. They're the best strength coaches on earth, and we've already, like, this past week,
This meeting.
or last 4 days, I was there, and
You're open. Gotcha. Okay,
mind
so
blown.
let me.
Go ahead,
No,
Marcus.
we just muted somebody. They didn't have their mics mute. That's a Zoom rookie right there.
Yeah, that's okay. Everybody's a Zoom rookie. It's Zoom is so funny. It's like you see somebody in like a coat and tie, and then they stand up and they got swim trunks on.
Oh my gosh. And when Zoom started in the COVID days, you would be surprised what I saw. I mean, girls going to the bathroom, getting out of the shower,
Yeah,
no clue that
it's
their
like they
camera
don't
was on.
realize their camera's on, I guess.
And you don't see that mistake very often anymore, but the audio mistake I see a lot of.
Sure. So that's I mean, not that I want to add more confusion. That's the last thing I want to do, but there will be so many things that are going to be added to sort of acceptable X3 programming based on this West Side Project. There's also a lot of disclaimers with the West Side Project, because some of their programming is going to take you less than 15 repetitions, which means you're going to be dealing with incredible amounts of weight. So I caution anybody who starts with the West Side program, um, just know that the material you're going to be shown is for advanced athletes. And if you want to experiment, make sure you have enough experience with lighter banding. Like, in fact, you might want to try one of these things, like with the lighter banding 10 times before you go into what they're recommending doing. Again, they train the strongest people. No, they create the strongest people in the world. And like, profoundly. And it's such an honor that we're working with these guys. They don't work with anybody else. There's no other fitness equipment company that they've ever worked with. They've existed since the 90s.
I love it. I'm
Yeah.
excited. That's amazing. I mean, and listen, we know there's other coaches in the community too that have their own training as well, right? And their own programming. And so my question to you would be, for those that maybe not move in that direction, which I mean, I'll be a guinea pig for and definitely test just to raise my hand. But for people that are like the busy dads or the moms, or maybe there was a woman that came in and said, "Hey, I'm in my 50s and 60s, and I don't want to hurt myself." What would you suggest as the starting point for them? What program would they want to start with
The
to
standard
begin?
one. Start with the standard one, and then because X3 is so approachable, because it's easy on joints and it's really targeted at muscle growth. I've seen people 60s, 70s, even 80s say like, hey, you know, I can do the standard program like no problem. Can I throw in some of the hypertrophy stuff? Yeah, absolutely. The idea that you only respond positively to exercise when you're young that's been proven false. Now, injuries mean something very different the older you get. But somebody who's using X3, like you've got to like make multiple mistakes to injure yourself with it. So, you know, as long as you're following the instructions and using it with care, you're probably not going to run into any problems.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anyone have any specific questions out there? And I will say I can attest to that because right now I'm doing a combination where I go day 1 chest, 2 is back and calves, 3 quads, day 4 shoulders, arms on day 5, and lower back and hamstrings on day 6. And that's been really effective for me. But I'm somebody also who has like I just need to train daily. I need to do something.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I would say it's exciting. You kind of almost pick your adventure, but start with the OG programming for everybody would be the suggestion. And then if what would you suggest for the person who wants hypertrophy? Who's that person for?
Well, hypertrophy where? Like I would probably say I'm pretty much trying to grow everything except my calves, uh, which is just I'm trying to calves a little bit less because they don't fit in pants very well. Like I grew them. They decided to grow very early on with X3. So I'm pretty much like 2 sets a week with my calves. But with everything else, I'm just like full tilt. Well, I was until I started working with Westside Barbell. Now I'm experimenting with a lot of other things. But it all fits, and everybody's going to see that stuff probably early January is when we're launching that program. And we're probably going to do some pre-sales for that program too.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a question in the chat feature. How long should we do the OG before starting any other programs?
a month. Do it for a month.
Okay.
Because you'll really be able to gauge where you are. Most people, because X3 is different than weightlifting, the idea that, well, you know, I don't have a lot of experience weightlifting, that's okay. What we're doing is different, and it's its own thing that you get used to. So it's not a drawback for somebody who's never trained. Um, but 1 month, you'll be able to check out every movement, decide if there's something that feels awkward. You can post a video in the forum and ask for people to like critique your form. Like that's probably like if anything feels weird, do that. I love that people do that because the members of the forum are super productive in really telling
Yes.
people. And another thing, we've done a pretty good job of keeping the sort of unnecessarily mean people like unable to participate, because I think that's what people are worried about. "Oh, I'm self-conscious. I don't want to ask if I'm doing something right or wrong because people are going to ridicule me." Yeah, if somebody ridicules anybody, they're out. So you're going to meet a lot of nice people in Forum.
You've got some amazing coaches and
Yeah.
moderators in that group too. You know, I see one of them right now. Johan, what's up, brother? All the way from Switzerland. What time is it over there? If you want to unmute yourself real quick.
It's Sweden, actually.
Oh, Sweden. Sorry.
No,
I get the
Europe.
two mixed up.
Yeah. Europe is one big country for all you guys.
That's awesome. Yes. And who else do we have here that is a coach or a kind of a community
I think
moderator in
Mike
here?
Wozney's on.
Mike, you here? You want to unmute yourself? And I'll be the first to tell you, yes, I love this
Yes.
community. It's stickler for
Can you hear me?
for form.
Can
We can hear you, Mike.
We can hear
Okay,
Mike.
good.
Yes.
What do you need
I've
to know?
got some
What do
great,
you need to know?
I've gotten some great feedback from you. No, we just want your presence known for people that
Okay.
need a little form correction.
Sure.
Yeah, Mike's a huge resource. Also, very handsome haircut.
Yes. Very nicely trimmed beard too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Let's get into these questions.
Let's get into it. Yeah, let's get into it. So, well, we did a little bit on the programming. I think we can obviously shift to more program on next week. If anything comes out of this, by the way, guys, just shoot me a message and we'll highlight that on next week's mastermind. Let's focus a little bit on diet. John, I know most people know that we have some big time carnivore focused nutrition guys in this group, but I think there's a big discrepancy or conversation around, well, I'm not a carnivore. What should I do if I still like my carbs? So what's your thought process on why carnivore, for just give me the 30-second elevator pitch on try carnivore versus if you're going to do anything else, here's what you need to consider.
So when looking at how many grams of protein a human being needs to optimize muscle growth, and by the way, cellular regeneration, which is something everybody should be interested in, even if they don't work out, 1 gram per pound of body weight. Once you look at supplements aside, when you look at how much food that is, there's really no room in your digestive system for anything else unless you're just eating all day long, which you should not be. Insulin should go down, as you know, that's normal human function. The idea that we're supposed to be grazing all day long is something that the snack food companies are trying to sell, and don't buy that. That's very bad advice, to have your insulin constantly being secreted. That's how you become a diabetic. So
Can I add to that, John?
absolutely.
One of the biggest follies was bodybuilders believing they had to be grazing all the time. And you know my background there.
Yes.
After several months of doing that, you're actually less anabolic because you become slightly type 2 diabetic. And if you don't have the insulin response needed, the gains are going to halt.
Right.
Your body needs a chance for the pancreas to recover. Your insulin receptors need to recover and be at their full potential. Your growth hormone levels rise while you're working out and you're hungry and your body's primed. And then when you finally shove a bunch of protein, maybe a little bit of carbs down the hatch, that insulin is then released. We create IGF-1 and we much more effectively take up the nutrients. The dumbest thing was ever done, and I can attest to that, and there's many stories which I can tell you how I had figured that out. And my strategy is, I think with people that don't really know what they're doing, just adhering to 1 or 2 meals a day is good because they don't know what they're doing. But I just go off my true appetite, and I can tell when my body really is ready for something. And
Hold on 1 second. That works for you.
even what craving, if all I want is a big ass hunk,
It's
yeah,
Mike and I were introduced by Phil Hernan, an amazing bodybuilder and an amazing human being. Like he was like mutually like one of our best friends. And he was amazing at knowing when to eat and knowing when not to eat. The guy stayed absolutely cadaver looking shredded and maintained a body weight of, I mean, he competed at 250 and he was probably more like 235, but just veins everywhere. Like, and it was just eating by instinct. The problem is you tell the average person to eat by instinct and they will become a contestant on my 600-pound life. So
right.
yeah, it's that's a talent that you
They
can
don't know true,
develop
they don't
over
know
a long
true
time.
hunger because they just have blood sugar crashes and feel like they're
Yeah,
hungry.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. You don't want your addiction to be driving your eating pattern. But insulin is here's where the mistake that bodybuilders made makes sense, because people have recognized over the years that insulin is actually the most anabolic hormone. It's not testosterone, it's insulin.
Yeah,
However, it only works when you have a tiny amount. In fact, the smaller amount of insulin, the more anabolic it is. The more insulin you have, the less anabolic it is. So, like when you're carnivore, because the amount of carbohydrates are so low, and by the way, there are carbohydrates in meat. A lot of people think, oh, I'm zero carb. Like,
well,
no such thing.
well,
Um,
even protein spikes insulin to take it up,
oh yeah, right.
you know.
All food will spike insulin, but it's not the same. We probably shouldn't call it a spike. It upregulates insulin to a degree, but not
Sure,
nearly to the degree that like an apple will. That'll,
sure.
it's send it, to the moon. And that's what you want to avoid, because that's when you become much less anabolic. So that's why carnivore is very powerful and effective for people who want to be lean and muscular. um, I have tried to leave everybody with the impression that the closer you are to pure carnivore, the easier your life's going to be. And it's my friend Brandon Carter, who he's an X3 user, but he's not on this forum. He's just too busy of a guy. But if you follow him on Instagram, you'll thank me for it. He's a very funny guy, amazing, uh, amazing strength coach. He says the only thing a cheat meal does is make you want 3 more cheat meals, because and that's the way insulin works. It fucks with your head and makes you want to eat like an unsupervised child. And then when you don't do that for a while, somebody's like, hey, do you want this, whatever, like, so some carbohydrates, and you're like, no, I really don't. And so I feel like just abstinence is so much easier than trying to moderate it. People get mad at me when I liken carbohydrates to alcohol and alcoholism, but there's research that shows that there is some relationship there. Um,
Dopamine.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
it's
and
dopamine.
then there's the emotional, psychological side, that people come in with eating disorders or food coping mechanisms, right? For those people, going into a carnivore style of lifestyle is all absolutely important. And then you look at people like Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, who actually have to go there for the mental issues that, almost elimination. So, not everybody is going to go all carnivore in the beginning, but I do recommend everybody at least do it for 30 days to see the experience themselves.
If you do it for 30 days, you're never going back.
I've
Yeah.
never gone
I
back
mean,
for
right, because it's
5
like
years.
you look at yourself in the mirror, you see how you feel, you wake up. Like, I don't know how many times when I went full carnivore for over a month, there were times where I would like get ready and leave for work and realize I forgot to make coffee. Like, I just didn't drink it because I was awake. Like, I used to stumble out into the kitchen to make coffee because it's just like, oh, God, I gotta wake up. I feel, just I'm tired. You wake up and you're not tired anymore. Like, when you're up, and that's the way it should be. Yeah, I recommend people try it. And hey, if you don't want to do that, Citronium can really help you in I'm just gonna say what Citronium does because I think a lot of people don't understand. And Kevin Chang is like a Citronium Jedi because he eats a significant amount of carbohydrates. He takes Citronium before he eats those carbohydrates because it slows down the rate of digestion of carbohydrates. So what it does is it'll take, like if you eat a Snickers bar, which I would never do, but there are some people out there who have listened to me who still want a Snickers bar, and I understand they're good. So, like I'm not gonna lie to you, like carbohydrates are, they're delicious. So you have this Snickers bar, it will digest at the rate of a carrot if you have citronium in your system. So when you get junk food to digest at the rate of vegetables, now you've really slowed down that insulin response, and it's not a spike. It's more like a lengthened bump. And if you look at your insulin over time, it's doing this instead of doing this. And there's no crash, and you'll be much more efficient, and you'll store less body fat, even with equal nutrition. And if you read the research on what's in citronium, it's actually it's extract from citrus peels that make this happen. So there's nothing unnatural in there, but it's amazing. And there's clinical trials on those isolated citrus peel extracts that causes this effect. And if you read the research, and like Kevin Chang, I didn't really say what it did. I just said it helps reduce the fat storage from carbohydrate consumption. Kevin read the research and he's like, can I take a lot of this like before every meal? And I said, yeah, there's really no drawback. And I don't know if you've seen his pictures lately, but he looks perfect. I think he will be, in the next few years, he will be the top natural bodybuilder in the world. Like, I know a few of the other ones, and they're not making any progress. They are staying the same. And Kevin is growing every time I see him.
So now that we're on the topic of supplementation, what supplementation would you recommend? Now, obviously, if we're going carnivore based, and I'll really quickly backpedal for a second because if we offended some of the people that are not carnivores, what would you say would be the next best thing for them if they choose to indulge in carbohydrates and or other food? What foods would you say is the least toxic, or if you're going to include in your diet, the ones they should focus on and the ones they should actually stay away from?
So white rice doesn't seem to have the oxalate load that a lot of vegetables do, and it also doesn't have the high sugar that fruit does. That's probably the best carbohydrate out there. And you'll notice like a lot of countries eat a lot of white rice and they don't have a lot of obese people. So that's better. When I have it, unless I need it to be metabolized very quickly, I might put some medium chain triglyceride oil on it or butter, which will slow the metabolization of it.
Okay, white rice. So we're you're saying fruit and honey, as Dr. Paul Saladino talks about, is not optimal?
It's not optimal. Yeah. I don't think people should follow that advice. In fact, I have told him on many occasions that his advice is going to cause someone to have a stroke. Because the when you're carnivore, but you still eat a lot of carbohydrate, especially simple carbohydrate like fruit and honey, you have high triglycerides and high LDL. Well, that's a recipe for a stroke. Like, don't do that. And I mean, maybe he's doing it because it sounds more marketable, I guess. I don't know what his motivations are. It's funny. I've done 3 podcasts with a guy, and I gave him a year. I told him, you need to change this recommendation. You're going to hurt people. He just didn't for a whole year. So I was like, all right. I mean, he's my friend. I don't want to like kick him in the nuts or anything, but after a year of telling him to stop that recommendation, I was on the Gabrielle Lyon podcast, and it's a really big one. And she asked me that same question, and I just had to tell the truth. Like, yeah, I think it's a terrible recommendation. Now, not everyone is going to be in, sort of like in danger, but if your triglycerides are over 100 and your LDL is 250, that's a problem. Your LDL could be 350 and your triglycerides at 40, not a problem at all. The triglycerides are what's going to cause that inflammation of arteries that cause the LDL to stick. So the entire cholesterol myth is really caused by the fact that there's inflammation in arteries, and that inflammation causes LDL to stick on the inside. So that would cause a blockage. So the logic back then was, okay, LDL is bad because it's causing this blockage. Well, it's actually not causing the blockage. It's the inflammation that's causing the blockage. So once we get away from that inflammation, LDL doesn't matter. And I urge everybody to watch a few videos by Dave Feldman, who explains how he's really developed a new lipid model of how we should look at the blood lipid profile. And what he's saying is low density lipoprotein, LDL cholesterol, is a transport mechanism for fats all over the body. It's like the subway system for how fatty acids get from place to place in your body. If you're taking a statin and limiting that, you're actually limiting your fuel delivery system, which is why people on statins have all kinds of strange side effects where they seem like they're rapidly aging or just generally suffering. Yeah, you're choking yourself off from what you need.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's
He's coming out with a
unfortunate.
documentary. The cholesterol code is coming out in January on that specific topic. And I know we've spoken a little bit about this, John, that, because I had a doctor call me in Canada as soon as he reviewed my blood work, and he was worried about, he took time out of his day in the weekend to call me immediately. And so did my wife's sister, who's a nurse practitioner, because of my LDL. And as we were discussing, there's an actual group on Facebook called Lean Mass Hyper Responders who eat carnivore, or in this case, ketogenic low carb, and have high LDL. But the ratio, as we discussed, is the most important, the HDL to triglyceride ratio, as we discussed.
Yeah.
And that being low was what makes, and I feel like I feel superhuman. So, but they want me to go get tested. They want me to go do the screening to see if I have any calcium buildup in my heart.
Yeah, you should do it, but like you won't.
I might do it just so we can have a podcast and talk about it.
Yeah.
Just to prove.
Problem,
Yeah, and also
guys,
calcification of arteries comes from inflammation with oxalates. There's a study I've posted, I don't know, 50 times in the forum. But unfortunately, it's pretty like the summary's pretty wordy, and I don't. It's like I get one like for that, and it's like, oh man, if only people would take the time to read that, everybody would be like, wow, that makes so much sense. So yeah, it's
What should the ratio be? Someone wants to know in the chat feature, what would be the correct ratio to determine good cholesterol levels? What's the formula?
I don't.
There is no specific ratio.
Yeah, because it's different because of lean mass hyper-responders. It's
And
actually
it
not a
depends on who
ratio.
it is. Are they working out? Anybody that's training hard has higher LDL because there's more cellular generation going on. And all cell membranes are made up of cholesterol. So it's catch-22. Doctors tell people to get in shape. They go start working out and training hard. And then go, oh, now your LDL is too high. I'm gonna put you on this statin. It's ridiculous. And I've
That's
seen it
100%
happen many
correct.
times. Another problem is cholesterol, when oxidized, becomes this sticky, weird substance that will collect the calcium and things like that. That comes from overcooking it. That comes from, like, you know, if you have bacon and you burn it to the point it's crispy. If you're cooking some red meat in the oven at 450 degrees for an extended period of time, cholesterol oxidizes at 248 degrees Fahrenheit if it's like that for an extended period of time. That's why if you look at ghee, when they make ghee, they never heat it above 248 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, soybean oil oxidizes cholesterol in your body. Preservatives do things like this. So
All vegetables.
all the oxidized cholesterol from all these other things that are going on is what's the problem. It's not the cholesterol itself. The cholesterol itself is healthy. It's what we need. The lack of exercise, having hardened arteries, damage to the arteries, that the cholesterol originally goes to that spot in the arteries because if there's damage or like cracking, the cholesterol acts as a band-aid. But if the cholesterol is oxidized and sticky, it'll start to collect more, and it'll start to collect calcium deposits and things like that. So it doesn't matter if your cholesterol is 250 or it's 175, there's not an optimal range as long as you're healthy and you do an angiogram and you're clear. It just doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Well, I'm gonna get that angiogram and just to prove to everybody, because I feel like in the best shape of my life, and the doctors, the nurse practitioners, the Western medical world is making a lot of people scared. All evidence contrary, the way I feel, the way I look, the way I perform, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't change anything. And ultimately, physicians will back down when they see you have a very, very low calcium score. Like my calcium score is 0. And every time I have somebody look at that, I send them the research that shows that calcification of arteries tracks exactly along with oxalate consumption. So like Mike brought up the whole like burning the fats. That's the thing. That is oxidized cholesterol. But what the research I'm talking about is saying is the greater driver is really how much vegetables you eat, because it's the vegetables you eat that are causing the sort of stickiness
Oxalates.
of because the oxalates, like they are inflammatory. Like we have antioxidants because we eat vegetables. If you don't eat vegetables, you don't need antioxidants because you're not oxidizing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Someone had their hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself there. And I want to be sensitive. I know you guys, I told you this be an hour long, so we'll wrap it up here shortly. But anything that you really want to focus on for next week's mastermind, shoot me a message. We can highlight that and we can make that the focus of discussion. But I think this has been amazing. Like, how many of you guys love this? Yeah, I've gotten some personal messages already. This is exciting. We can
Oh,
talk about whatever subject you want next week. I know we wanted to get a little bit into more of the supplementation, John, because I know that there's a couple supplements that you have in the community that people have been taking and wanting to know more about dosage. I know there's the subject of hormone optimization with, and it's people learning a little bit more about Primal Medical as a solution for that.
yeah.
I know there was discussions around product, band durability, accessories, the GH biplate accelerator, and obviously, mindset, motivation, coaching, support. That's all kind of discussions that we can look to the future as a community to go through. But thoughts, and I know, well, let's open up the floor because there's a couple of hands raised real quick. Tom, I see your hand raised, and then David will go after you. After you, so go ahead and unmute yourself, Tom.
Sure, thank you. I guess I can have a specific question for either Dr. J or maybe Daniel. So I've been using X3 for about 6 years now and carnivore about the same amount of time. I'm 65 years old. I am a member of Primal Medical, and my goal is that I want to reach a little bit, lose a little more body fat and get a little stronger. And I do have a call with Dr. Ahmed in about 30 minutes. And I was wondering what your thoughts are using either Kaisertrex or tesofensine to kind of get my body fat down a little and my strength up a little bit.
So those are two different things.
Right. I
Right.
understand that. I just wonder which you think might be a better path to take.
Well, oh, if you were to choose, well, what's the bigger priority? Well, from a health perspective, to have the healthiest heart, you want to have a normal level of testosterone. So, do you know what your total testosterone level is?
Yeah, I've had 3 blood tests. Total testosterone was 491. About 6 months ago, it was 460, and right now it's about 440.
Okay. Yeah, you would benefit from the oral testosterone. Tesofenzine's great. It forces more brain activity, which causes you to have just a greater energy use. But you may want to look at that later. Like I would focus on the testosterone is more important.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll lose some body fat just from having a higher level of testosterone because muscle metabolism will be enhanced.
Can we speak
are
on
you-
that real quick? That the forms of testosterone you believe is the most bioavailable and the best to take right now?
So this is something I had been messing around with for a couple years, and Mike Wazny and I were philosophizing about this and running sort of our own experiments with like really the person who came up with the idea first was Emmerich Delsick, who's a friend of both Mike Wazny and myself, and he was explaining how, like, you don't want high testosterone all the time. He was doing sort of micro dosing, just taking 10 milligram shots subcutaneously per day. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, I don't want to do that with cypionate or enanthate because they last a long time in the body. Those are just, for those of you who don't know, those 2 types of testosterone that are normal for testosterone replacement therapy. I wanted something that was faster acting because I had a theory that what you want is to up and down regulate testosterone in the same way the body naturally does it. Because what if all those side effects that come from testosterone just exist because the way we administer it is outside of the natural circadian rhythm up and down regulation of testosterone? So this was a theory which is now proven correct via a couple things. In fact, I was reviewing some data collection in Colorado this past Saturday night, and I was with a couple guys from the Primal team, and wow, did that get confirmed? And I had run some experiments myself using a different type of testosterone called testosterone suspension. So I was using less than I was normally prescribed, but I was introducing it on a daily basis. So my testosterone would go up in the morning and then down by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was never taking less testosterone than in that experiment, and I was never getting a better effect. It was absolutely amazing. And then coincidentally, a number of different groups were coming out with oral testosterone. And they had sort of been working on the same approach, like noticing that it's not how high, like somebody just asked, how high a level do you really want? It's not a simple answer, because what you want is your testosterone to be higher than, say, 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, but it doesn't need to be much higher than that for very long, because it is in those periods where the testosterone finds its receptor sites, attaches, and if you exercise and eat the proper nutrition, you'll grow. So the oral testosterones are absolutely superior. And really right now, Primal is the only company that does oral testosterone. The other companies, they like doing things sort of the way it's always been done. It's just a funny thing with medical doctors. Like, nobody has a problem being the, 1,000th person to prescribe it like that, but nobody wants to be the first. And that's a shame, because you should be thrilled about being the first if you are completely convinced that it is superior. And we have demonstrated that scientifically, hands down. So Primal is really, now if somebody wants standard TRT, the injections or pellets or whatever, yeah, Primal will write that prescription, but we'll argue with you first, because it's just better. Like, you will be healthier. Another thing about oral testosterone, it doesn't suppress your natural testosterone at all. So you can go on it or off it, or like if I just don't feel like training one day, I could not take testosterone and I'd be fine.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
like
that.
it's just not that big of a deal, because anytime you go on it, you get the benefit and it adds to your natural testosterone. If this had existed the entire time since I was 28, when I first got my prescription after my testicular damage rugby hit thing, I would have been so much better off. But I'm
John,
happy.
how do we diagnose if we need it or not? Like, who's the person that says, man, I should look into this for myself?
Well, it's a
Yeah.
blood test.
You get a blood test. Yeah. And then what? So,
Yeah.
and then what are we specifically looking for that would indicate we need TRT?
Your levels are low.
Just a certain level. Is there anything else? Any signs, symptoms other than that
You're
score
always,
itself?
if you have low testosterone, you're always going to have symptoms. Your sex drive will be down. Your energy will be down. You won't put on muscle no matter how hard you're working out. There's a lot of different things, depression, and what the doctors say is the normal range is bullshit. The majority of doctors think in the like 200s normal range, and that's a crock of shit. The closer you can get, the closer you can get to 1,000, the better.
Okay.
And I've been helping guys for years now with the microdosing, so their levels never get over 1,000. They don't shut down their hypothalamus, and their adrenal cortex can recover, and their testes even come back. So they can
Wow.
produce small amounts of their own testosterone on top of it. Now, this has to be really intricately done, where most doctors would give guys a 200 milligram shot once a week and completely screw them up. And then their estrogen would be too high. Their testicle shrink, their hypothalamus shrinks, their other hormones get thrown off, their blood pressure gets thrown off, their blood gets too thick, their adrenal cortex suffers, and then they put them on aromatase inhibitors. If you have to be on an aromatase inhibitor, that's one of the first signs something's wrong. Now, if done properly. So if a guy wants to go, you know, the cypionate route, whatever, I can teach guys how to maximize that to get short stints of almost high performance, but keep their, you know, their health. But then now I'm using the Kaisertrex, and I found that for myself, the dosing, I like to split it up. I don't want to take all of it at once and get a huge spike, because even if you spike too high, there could still be some hypothalamus suppression just because of this, you know, the spike is so high. And once testosterone is free in the system, it only circulates for a few hours and then just breaks apart into oxygen and hydrogen molecules. So if you take like a small dose in the morning and then a small one midday, you'll get a couple of spikes, but they're not completely out of range, and you'll have testosterone to use through the day. And you really want it during the day. You know, you'd never want it at night. You don't need it at night. You're sleeping.
Yeah. That's
But you
where the problem
definitely want
starts,
it
is having it
around
high at
the
night.
times, you want it around the times that you work out, when you activate your androgen receptors, or if the missus wants to get romantic and you want to perform, you know, the things like that. So, yeah,
I love it. This is great. This is a
at
great discussion.
At Primal, we're definitely on the head of the empire when it comes to this stuff. We understand things that unfortunately most all other doctors don't seem to understand.
Primal actually is we're the #1 prescriber of oral testosterone in the world.
Okay.
Huh.
Where can people find out more about that if they want to look into it?
Primalmedical.net.
There you go, guys.
I-
And what about
I
what
have
about
a-
for the? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Who's that?
Yeah, I have a question. So I have I'm taking enclomiphene, and a year and a half ago I was at 440 of my testosterone at 39. My last test just a few weeks ago was over 1500. It was off the chart at over 1500. And so I'm thinking that I probably don't need any supplements at this point. Does that sound reasonable to you guys?
Yes.
Well, if you come off the enclomiphene, they're going to come back down.
It'll come back down a lot, you think?
Oh yeah, don't stop
Yes,
enclomiphene.
the enclomiphene's the
Okay.
reason it's up.
Yeah.
It's not like if you
Okay.
if you quit taking it, it's not going to stay like that. That's what's causing
Gotcha.
it. And the
I thought maybe
problem,
some of
the
the
only one of the issues I have with enclomiphene is, for some reason, I've seen it with many people, their free test doesn't go up much. Their levels will be 12, 1300, but their free test only goes up a couple points.
Yeah.
Where when they're taking the Kaisertrex or microdosing the cypionate properly, their free test also climbs. And free test is what we want. Your total number really means jack shit. What you need
Okay.
is the free testosterone. That's what your body has extra to use for working out, having sex, things like that.
Mike, what
Yeah.
happens to SHBG with an enclomiphene patient?
What I've seen with the SHBG, it does go up a little bit, which means that your body is starting to counteract it.
Huh.
But
Okay.
it's not something drastic.
Okay.
John.
Have you seen the before and after blood work, John?
I have not given enough time to enclomiphene.
Okay.
I've just focused on other
It's
stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Enclomiphene confuses me because some guys respond really well to it and their levels will be like 1400. Guys like that, I'll say, okay, just start taking one every other day. Let's get you down to like 1000 or whatever. But I had a client that had to go on the cypionate injections. I had him go to Primal, and on enclomiphene, his testosterone went from 400 to 8 something, but his free test went up 1 point. Just one. It went from like 8 to 9. and he, he claimed he didn't
And it should
feel
be
any
at
better.
40.
What?
Yeah.
So for the people out there that are like, what does this even mean? Eclomiphene, is that another form of testosterone? And
No,
No.
it's an injectable.
enclomiphene is enclomiphene. No, it's a
What is
tablet.
it? The tablet.
It's one of the compounds in clomiphene citrate. It's a fertility drug.
Okay.
When they separated it, what it does is causes the release of luteinizing hormone, which then causes the testes to release testosterone. But for some reason, and I'm trying to rack my head on it, guys will double, triple their testosterone score on enclomiphene, but it doesn't show the same amount with their free test. Their free test
Which is
doesn't
what
do that
counts a lot
amount.
more.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and when we put them on synthetic testosterone, whether it be Kysotrex or Cypionate or whatever, you will see at the same time the rise in the free testosterone. So there's something going on there where I think that maybe because they're, maybe if a guy's levels are now 1400, the first thing that it seems that SHBG does seem to affect is the free testosterone. When we keep the SHBG down, the free test continue to climb. If we're not above range, so when I microdose the Cypionate with guys and their levels peak at 1,000 and go down to 700, and every 12 hours after the injection, their levels will hit 1,000. And then the next morning, their levels will be 680, 700. Then they take their dose and it'll go up to 1,000 and then back down. But because they never go out of range, their body doesn't detect anything's wrong. And their SHBG does not go up, which allows the free test to keep climbing. As long as you're not out of range, your body doesn't seem to have a problem at all with free test. Because I've seen guys that free test, their total was 950 on the microdosing, and their free test was more like 60. And I was like, holy shit, you're rocking. So like our body doesn't seem to detect that the free test being higher is a problem. It's the total that it detects as a problem.
Well, it's the total in a certain time frame.
Right.
I gotta show you some stuff. I know you haven't seen because it's not been published. But Dan and I have a PowerPoint presentation that you got to see. It's gonna change one of the things that you said, but based on the current literature, what you're saying is 100%. I just think there's a little bit of a new understanding about the peak and relationship with SHBG. Basically, the more narrow you can make the peak is what's getting us away from.
If it's a very short peak for like an hour, it doesn't seem to affect anything.
Exactly.
And I've seen that. Dr. Serrano sent me the blood work for the new sublingual testosterone, and there was a 1 hour point where the peak hit over 2,000, but then an hour later, was coming down around 1,000 or whatever. And as long as that's during the day and not at night, it seems like as long as it's that short peak.
Hey,
which makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys,
I was gonna say real quickly. I know you got to wrap this up, but speak quickly to me about the nano, and then really for the women.
No. We're not ready to talk about that.
Okay.
There's so many things that need to happen before we even mention that, which is why I told you not to mention it.
Okay, so for the women though, what are the women specifically looking at in this case? What are the women that have been plugging their ears around the testosterone conversation? What are they focusing on?
Okay, so the women are the dosage is gonna be very, very different. Like maybe
2
a
milligrams
quarter
a day.
Yeah.
So are they looking for anything specifically for hormones? Because I know we've had this conversation a little bit, and I know we focus mostly on men right now, but what are they looking at when they go get tested? And if there's anything that they should be looking to as an intervention, what would that be?
As far as the levels for a woman being healthy?
Yes.
women, a healthy woman on average produces up to maybe 15 milligrams a week of testosterone. So if they produced between 1 and 2 milligrams a day of testosterone, that would be a healthy normal range. The problem I'm seeing with some of these doctors is they're giving these women one bolus shot a week of 15, 20 milligrams, which is also bringing them up out of range, messing with the hypothalamus, raising SHBG, and then after 5 days it crashes, they have nothing. So these short shots, large shots, it's just not the way it should be. That's where, just like the Kysotrex, they used to have Andriol, which was the same thing years ago in Europe, but they didn't have it as high a dose, because what it is our liver destroys like 96% of the testosterone that we digest. That's why I laugh when people think hormones and food is a problem. The little bit of hormones in the piece of steak, you're going to maybe get a 1/4 of a milligram of testosterone tops, if you're lucky. But something like Andriol, which would be like 20 or 40 milligrams, that would be an ideal thing for a woman's oral testosterone.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, my wife, for example, 42, 4 kids later, and she finds that, like, specifically around that time of month, she is like, it is hard for her to keep her emotions in check. She goes all over the place. The carb cravings come, the need to want to have a drink or two. It just seems to be that 1 week period for her specifically. And I don't know if any other woman deal with that particularly.
That's not so much the hormones as it is emotionally. She's going through things, and her body knows that alcohol and carbs give her a dopamine spike and make her feel better. If she didn't ever drink alcohol or eat carbs, she wouldn't crave it.
I'm quoting you, and I'm going to share that with you. And then she can't get at me, but she's doing awesome.
Our brain knows when we feel a certain way that these carbs and alcohol give us that boost. And so screw it, I'll have a drink, or screw it, I'll eat this piece of pie. And it's just that temporary reward. And our body knows that that will give it to us. But if they never drank alcohol or tasted any processed sugars in their entire life, they would not crave that stuff, because their body wouldn't know any different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. It's just like a heroin addict, for example. If they did heroin for years and then they quit and they saw it and they were going through a depressed time, they would have like maybe just a little bit, same sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to wrap this guys up, because I know I told you it's only going to be an hour long. John said, forget, his wife's going to kill him. They're entertaining today and they're not ready. So he went over. So that's why he just dropped out of this meeting. But thank you guys. This was amazing. I mean, listen, look at that. There's still 35 of us here. So yeah. How many of you want to continue this conversation next week? Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, let's start making this a weekly occurrence. If this time works good for you guys, let me know. And then just shoot me some topics to discussion. I mean, Mike, dude, I'm going to go take notes and watch this. So this will be recorded. I will upload this. We'll have a YouTube channel, but wow, powerful stuff. Edward, do you have something you wanted to add?
I was going to say, I'm a member of Primal Medical, and about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I had my coaching interaction with Waz. Dude's a freaking genius. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And Travis, listen to what he's saying about the enclomiphene. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of money. You will not move free testosterone. I tried that stuff out like 6 years ago. Same exact situation. My test didn't even show up on the charts. Free test didn't even move. So Mike knows exactly what he's talking about. And he knows even way more about exercise, programming, diet. I mean, the guy's a genius. So you got access to him with Primal Medical, but I'm going to be showing up here just to listen to him talk whenever he chimes in.
100%. We need to have a mastermind just with Coach Waz.
Sure. And if, guys, if I do, offer consultations, if somebody, you ever have something that you want to just talk to me about or whatever. And then, I coach clients of my own too. So if somebody wants to talk to me about, obviously not all of us are a good fit, but if somebody feels like they might be a good fit for me, they can reach out.
How do they reach out to you?
You can get a hold of me on Facebook. You can get a hold of me. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me would be Facebook. Otherwise, Primal Medical would set somebody up with a consultation with me. I
Awesome.
openly post my phone number. I think it's even available on Facebook. So if somebody wanted to send me a text or something, I openly have that available.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And for everybody here, I'm going to close this meeting down, but thank you for attending. And like I said, if there's specific topics that you want to focus on for next week that we didn't hit today, or you just want to continue down the road with, send me a message personally on Facebook and we will see you at the same time, same place. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the words, Edward. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.